$5 lattes, avocado toast, designer clothes, other excess spending. What does it all mean? If I hear one more word from an MSNBC guest, I'm going to be on the news in a different context. Why? Because it's designed to shame you and shift blame away from the people who do have the resources to make these things easier. Landlords, employers, the whole lot. People who already have these resources and will fight tooth and nail not to pay it forward, because they earned it, and obviously you're not working hard enough. So what can we do as we inherit these conditions of income and wealth gaps? Let's talk about it. But first, you must say this affirmation with me.
It is not the little treat that hurts the lion.
It is the negligence of the treat's consequence. What if I told you that excess consumer spending isn't the core of the struggles of younger generations? Rather, it's inflation, stagnating wages, and the lack of upward mobility. While excess spending may exacerbate issues, the three biggest expenses for a lot of people are housing, transportation, and food. Things are just kind of getting harder in general. We are being squeezed for as much money as we've got, so we need to work that much harder to protect what we have. We can do that by educating and informing ourselves and decoupling ourselves from the systems that are designed to keep us down. So, let's start by talking about the things that are most expensive to us. So, housing. We're usually sold on the idea that we have to buy a certain amount of space to be happy, or that we need to live in a certain part of town to be safe, which neither of which are really that true. It also doesn't help that most living options that are newly built are tacked on with the word luxury and are mass advertised all the time. So what can we do about this? Explore. There are plenty of places you can shop around for rentals that aren't Zillow, including Facebook groups, subreddits, or just some guy who posted a sign on his front lawn. It also doesn't hurt to look for a roommate. Housing costs can be a lot easier if you can find someone you can trust or at least tolerate or agree on for a pretty long amount of time. And your knowledge base of the city you live in and the different housing units available will grow as you expand your social presence. So go outside. Be a part of a community space. Talk to strangers. Touch grass. Go. I don't care if it's snow on the ground. Go. We are stronger together, and you do not have to do this alone. So please take the little bit of extra effort it takes to build those relationships with those around you. Moving on to transportation. Car marketing is peak consumerism. Everything has to be the biggest, the flashiest, and the greatest, and the most practical, and offer the most lifestyle for you. It's all a lie, because there are so many different ways to get around and have so many life experiences where a car isn't even necessary. Look at me. It is okay to use public transportation. If you can't afford a car, it will cause more problems than it will benefit. And if anybody does judge you for this, this isn't the kind of energy that you want to have in your life anyways. There might be other micromobility options outside of public transport depending on where you live. You might even consider moving somewhere closer to amenities or your work to account for that. Obvious caveat, I know that safety is a concern when you're looking at alternate transportation options or just walking in general. This is a do as you're willing or as you're able to kind of basis. I only mean to emphasize this because we are socially conditioned to believe cars as the universal standard and default. That does not have to apply to you. And if you do shop for a car, here's what I have to say. Number one, you don't need an SUV or truck. SUVs are often advertised as being more practical or better on unskilled drivers, or that you need a plethora of space for your kids or your lifestyle, or that you need all-wheel drive to clear out your 2 inches of annual snow. None of this is necessarily true. What they fail to mention, however, is that this shit is more expensive to buy, fill up, and maintain, and the only reason it's more expensive is because they can cram more luxury features into it, which don't help with the actual reliability of the car. For affordability and practicality, a small car is better. Number two, you don't need a new car for it to be reliable. I'm still running my Civic into the ground at about 320,000 miles now, and there are plenty of other used cars that stand the test of time. There are plenty of resources like mechanics on YouTube and other online advice that help you figure out what's a reliable used choice for you. Number 3, you need more than oil changes and tire rotations. Learn your maintenance schedule and do your best to stick to it. Your maintenance schedule should be in your owner's manual, which is either in your glove box or in the nether. In that case, you can probably find it online through your manufacturer's website. If you bought a used car recently, get the maintenance done as soon as you can. You cannot trust the last owner that tells you that they changed the oil last week. Trust me, I've been there. Number 4, stay on top of the little things and prepare for common breakdowns. Don't wait too long to fill up. Make sure your tire pressures are always good. Make sure that you have a pair of jumper cables in your car or a supercapacitor in the case of the event of a dead battery. Make sure your spare tire isn't 20 years old, and then learn how to change that spare tire on the side of the road with the toolkit that's available in your car. AAA memberships are also pretty inexpensive, with the top tier being about $125 per year, so it might be worth the investment to get you out of a bad spot. Number 5, the workers at part stores are here to help. Most have some kind of offhand knowledge that might be helpful. The shops usually have a code reader that you can use if you get a check engine light for free. You can even have tool rentals, and there are also installation services for things like windshield wipers or even light bulbs. These employees may not be as skilled as your tech and a mechanic, but they have much less incentive to be dishonest since they're not getting more money out of you just because you bought a new thing. Number 6, keep some money for repairs and maintenance. Issues tend to get worse the more that you drive on them, so it's important that you get them fixed early. Try to keep some kind of money tucked away for car issues. It can be as little as $1,000 or something that's just tied into your emergency fund. Anything helps. Number 7, on the topic of financing, if you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it. You don't want to be on the wrong end of a defaulted loan or to be stuck with something that you never really were able to afford and you are now have the next 5 years or so where you're just screwed. There are plenty of resources that offer different rules and guidelines to figure out how much car you can realistically afford. And also, it's important to understand how dealerships work and how maybe you might be getting ripped off in terms of financing on that end. Moving on to the topic of food, and I have much less to say on that because it's food, and we all need to eat, and I'm not about to tell you to get an eating disorder just so that you can be financially healthy. But if you do want to start things like cooking from home, I would say that batch cooking and using your freezer is going to be your best friend. Batch cooking and learning to cook with what you have will be a lot more useful than buying stacks on stacks of pre-made meals. It's cheaper to be an ingredients household than it is to be a recipe household. Or you could take my route and eat peanut butter sandwiches every day. I don't really know. All these pretty base too. So now that we've covered the big 3 expenses, what other things might be getting in the way of escaping a shitty financial situation? The first thing would be addictions. Just quit! But seriously, substances, e-girls, gambling, these things will all maximize the amount of dopamine you get and will overload your frontal lobe or any other consideration for your sense of well-being. So how do we deal with this? Go outside. You are much less likely to cope if you have people around you who are able to lift yourself up and you're interacting with the world and you are building up that social and emotional fulfillment that comes with being outside of your house. You are much more likely to consume if you feel isolated and alone. And corporations know this. That's why they have a vested interest in keeping you miserable. They know that if they can isolate you from real social connections, they can convince you that, oh, you'll actually be happy if you buy this product, and then you'll stay hooked. So I say again, go outside and go try to make friends in a place where you're not expected to spend money at a time. Your libraries, parks, other community spaces, group activities, it's all available in like literally any major city, I promise. Next one up is always a hot topic, and that is credit cards. These have high interest rates that will kill your ability to save. If you do have a lot of credit card debt right now, you might want to consider getting a balance transfer offer to a new credit card, or you could get a personal loan to pay down that debt and have a fixed expense rather than this continuously compounding pile. It's also noteworthy that credit unions will usually offer much lower interest rates than traditional bank cards, so that might be helpful for you if you're the type of person that sees yourself always getting into some kind of debt. Another thing that holds a lot of people back is a general lack of education. If you're not aware or internalized of how much of a paycheck that you should save or how to calculate if a loan will be affordable to you, you can get into a lot of easy traps. Longer loan terms, overly aggressive interest rates, or just shit that you can't afford will be really difficult for keeping your head above water. Just make sure to try to do a little bit of research before committing to any long-term financial decision. Another thing that holds people back is a general lack of awareness. If you don't know where your money's going, it's going to be a lot harder for you to try to save some of that money. It's easy enough to know what your rent or other bills are, but this is where the little things adding up trope can really count. I want to stress that it is okay to have the $5 latte, but what is not okay is being negligent of the way that that affects you in context for your spending for the week or the month or on a much larger scale. And for that, I've made another Excel spreadsheet. Very rare for this channel, I know. So for the past 12 months or so, I've been trying to track every single expense in my life manually. No, I'm not crazy. People used to do this all the time. It's called a fucking checkbook. I had a teacher in high school who taught a personal finance class in accounting, and he went on this big rant about how nobody knows how much they're spending anymore, and they're just going on and swiping the card and zoop, zoop, zoop. And by God, he was right. There are papers that offer some suggestions that there are differences between tapping a card and writing a check or handing over cash. We were not meant to comprehend this world. But being cognizant of your own spending might be helpful for you. This is how I would approach it if I was going through this sheet for my first time. The first time around, we want to take a guess as to how much we think we spend in each spending category that we set each month. Then we can take a look at what our bank statement for the previous month was and see how that actually lines up. We can compare those two and evaluate how we think we've been spending and how we're actually spending. And then we can make goals and adjustments for the next couple months moving forward. While you're working this out, a good framework to start with is the 50-30-20 rule, where 50% of your income is usually suggested to go towards your core expenses. These core expenses are the things you cannot physically live or function without. This is your rent, your utilities, your car, everything like that. Down to 30%, this is your discretionary bucket. These are the things you spend money on to make your life better and more livable for you. This can be your hobbies, your luxuries, anything you like. And then the last 20% goes into savings. Usually this is reserved for retirement only, but if you're in a debt situation, it might be applicable to start paying that down instead. If you want to know whether or not to start paying it down debt or saving, there are certain resources, usually like the Money Guys, Financial Order of Operations, or things like that. I even have a separate video on savings goals and debt payments if you want to model that. That's what I made, and I will link it in the description or something. So how does this spreadsheet actually work? Let's take a look together. As always, I'm going to keep a little README tab to show you how the spreadsheet works and also keep a little quick start guide, but I'll go through most of this in the video. So we can get started with the budgeting tab. This is if you were just getting started, you could either use this as a place to set your goals, or you could try to take a guess at how you've spent, and you can see how that compares to reality at the end. First things first, what we're going to do is we're going to estimate our income. I have a little place here where you can estimate your wages based on how many hours you work and potential deductions. But if you know how much you get paid every month, usually I'll just go with 2 paychecks. Let's say for the sake of example, that's going to be $3,000. I don't know. If you make any extra income, I put a category in there for that, but it's not that important if you don't have any other sources of income. So the next big block that we're going to be working with is the expense budgeting. So I have all of these categories here, and then I have them assigned to 4 different subgroups. These will translate to what they look like in terms of the 50-30-20 rule. I have core, discretionary, debt payments, savings, and investments. Another noteworthy thing is that any of these categories here you can rename. I also left in a few extra categories if you had some additional stuff that you wanted to throw in. But these are the ones that I typically use. But you can always change the name. So if I wanted to just change insurance to car insurance, just to make it a little better, I can do that. And then if I wanted to count it as discretionary spending, I can also do that. But we're going to set that back to core, and we're going to figure out some values. Okay, so let's go through this hypothetical budget and see what it looks like. So we've got a couple loan payments between a student loan and a car loan. Then we obviously have rent, utilities, take $100 for car insurance, another $150 for transportation, so stuff like gas, oil changes, throw that all in the bucket. Bus passes, whatever. Groceries, I've put at $250. If you're shopping for other people, that's definitely going to be more expensive. Housewares, anything between toilet paper, paper towels, dish soap, body soap, whatever you need, throw it in that bucket. I've got the restaurants and treats. Anytime I go to a restaurant, bar, anything that's not like bare bones I'm eating at home. Like if I went and got ice cream or a snack from Sheetz, I'd throw that in that category. Another $100 in shopping, entertainment for all my subscriptions or whatever you might want to throw in that bucket. My recreation category, I save for stuff like gym memberships and paying into like other activities and stuff like that. I like having some money set aside for that much. And then I'm going to throw $400 a month at my savings, and I'm not investing shit. Well, let's throw that last $100 to my investments. Okay, so through those categories, this next block will kind of sum that up for you based on what your earnings, expenses, debt payments, savings goal, and it will tell you if you're over under based on your budget. If you have more budgeted than you earn, you might have to revise this a little bit. This last block here, the subgroup estimates, this will show you the percentage of your income that you're putting towards each subgroup by your budget. So it looks like I'm spending quite a bit on my core expenses, but between my debt reduction and savings, that's kind of low, but it's all right. And for anyone who seems a little intimidated by going through this hypothetical and finding that, oh man, I don't even make that much money a month, that's okay. Taking a look at this and trying to find out where things stretch, it may not work exactly as planned for you. These general like finance guidelines are for people making like median or normal incomes. And if that's not you, these numbers might change. What's important is that you're doing something to take a look and evaluate and see how you might be able to make a few things better. So the next tab that we're going to look at is the ledger tab. This is where you will enter in every individual expense you have. Now, this might be something that you update periodically. This might be something you only look at the end of the month. Whatever it is, that's fine. The one thing that you do need to know is that you need to have a category and you need to have something in one of these three columns here. Which column you use depends on what kind of transaction it is, and we'll go into that. So let's say at the first of the month I get paid, and I'm going to throw that in, and I'm going to choose my category of employment income, and I'm going to put that in the cash in column. Now for my purposes, I'll use cash in as what goes into my checking account, cash out what goes out of my checking account, and credit is everything that gets charged to my credit card. First thing, I'm going to take a look at my savings account because I'm going to follow the principle of paying yourself first, which means contributing to savings or investment accounts or paying down debt, getting that out of the way before you start focusing on other expenses. This might be useful if you are a person who will just spend money as soon as it lands in your account, but I do recognize that some people do just need to eat, and that's okay too. But let's say at this paycheck, I decide to throw in $200 into my emergency savings. I'm going to put this in the cash out column because this is going into my savings account, but it's coming out of my checking. Same thing if I were to throw $100 into my investment account. Let's say another thing, I have to pay my utilities. I'm going to throw in electric, I don't know, $100 a month. I know electric bills are crazy stupid right now because of data centers. really not looking great right now. Anywho, same kind of principle goes for your debt payments. If you're scheduled to make a car loan payment, I would also put it in the cash out column. So after we've paid ourselves, paid off a utility, and paid down our debt, it looks like that took care of $800, about half our paycheck. Let's say we go grocery shopping and we charge $80 to our credit card, and then same day, we're going to, I don't know, buy some other shit. Now that we've put that in the credit category, that's going to calculate in the spreadsheet as having a credit balance. So let's say later in the month I want to pay off my credit card. Based on what I've charged, I can choose the credit card payment, and I'll also put it in the cash out column. What that'll do is that'll deduct it from my checking, and then it'll automatically subtract that from my credit card balance. Now that we have some transactions listed, we can go into the monthly analysis column. What we can do in the analysis tab is we can take a look and see how our spending is broken down by category, and we can see how much budget we have left in each category, which might be useful for you for things like restaurants or some of those categories that you're going to be paying down over the month. So I can go to this monthly progress block here, and I can put in which day of the month it is, and it will tell me how far in the month I've progressed. You can use the monthly progress block to see how much of the month is left, and then how much of my certain categories in budgets are left. So if I see that I have 52% remaining of my month, but I have 68% of my grocery budget remaining, that's a pretty good time. And then your net income is just going to be the money that comes in minus the money that goes out. Generally, you want this to be a positive number or 0. This little block at the bottom here is the subgroup analysis table. What this will tell you is what your budgeted expenses were based on this bottom block in the estimates in the budgeting tab, and it'll compare it with what your actual spending is. So it'll add up the categories based on what you've actually spent, and it'll show you the differential. And then it'll also show you the proportion of income. So how much of the money you took in you spent on your core expenses or your discretionary expenses, or how much you saved. Now, this bottom number here, the proportion of income that you put towards savings, that's called your savings rate. That's going to be a really important number for you if you want to do things like retire or save up for things, because usually having a higher savings rate is a good predictor for a lot of good positive financial outcomes. Moving on to the holdings and debt tab. This is pretty optional, but I use it myself to track different balances, especially if you have multiple loans or savings accounts and you want to see how you're progressing through each one. This is going to be a place where you can track that. So first I have my checking account. So I can say, I don't know, I started out with $501, and I have my income minus everything that I paid out of the checking account, and that gives me my ending balance. Credit card is a little more complicated. We can start with the beginning balance, and then we can enter our interest rate. And what this will do is this will estimate the interest charge at the start of the month when we got our statement. If you do want to go back and check your credit card statement, you can find where that interest charge is. So let's say instead of $10.42, I actually got charged $10.38. So you can see I had this balance, and then I had this interest charge, made these purchases, paid off those purchases, but I still have the initial balance. The next two tables are going to be any other account that you want to track. This is going to be your emergency savings, your Roth IRA, your car loans, student loans, whatever you want to do, you can put it in here. So for me, first I have a short-term savings vault. This is a separate vault in my savings account that I keep for if I want to have a specific financial goal in mind. So if I want to save up for like a down payment on a house, I can put it towards that. Next is going to be my emergency savings, and then I have my investment account. Emergency savings, let's say you'll have maybe $1,000, earn 3.6% in your account, and you want to save $5,000 in your emergency savings. What this will tell you is it'll take your beginning balance, how much interest you've earned, how much you've contributed to the account, and that'll give you your ending balance and then how far you are along in paying towards your goal. So for your debt accounts, it's going to be very similar, although we can start with the beginning balance, and then also, if you want to, instead of the savings goal, you can say what was the initial principal on your account, so that when you take your ending balance, you can see how much money you have actually paid off of your loan. And at the very bottom block here, we can see what our net worth is going to be. So the idea of net worth is to give you a real value of how much you actually own based on the fundamental accounting equation. So essentially what this can say is you can have a lot of stuff, but if you owe lenders a lot of money on that stuff, you're still broke. So ideally, as you progress through life, you would want your net worth to generally increase over time. The other thing that I want to show you is that I have a light version of this spreadsheet. So this is essentially anything, but I don't include the holdings and debt, and I don't track anything on a credit card. So this is pretty much more or less a checkbook with the monthly analysis that gives you the breakdown of how much you spend and also gives you the subgroup analysis. I thought that might be useful for someone who doesn't want to track 7 different accounts. So I've included that version as well. As always, I will post a Google Drive link that includes the Excel template and the Google-friendly version of this sheet. Please feel free to let me know if you have any questions or if there is a topic that I didn't elaborate on enough. I'd love to talk more about it. I know that we went through a lot today. If you have made it all the way to the end, thank you very much for watching. Press all of the buttons if you want to see my face again, and I will see you next time. Cheers! I'll take it.